Hey everyone, Eggman here with another video, and 1 month ago we got our exclusive restriction list for the OP03 meta for us in the English version of it, where all three of these cards got restricted to one copy maximum per deck, and I wanted to make a video kind of just going over my thoughts about it 1 month later, especially since we've had a lot of events, we have a lot of data with this new restriction list in effect, and kind of want to go over for that. So that's kind of the idea for this video, and I do also want to preface kind of the purpose and the knots for this one as well, kind of like the one I did a month ago. So this is more just to kind of reflect on data, present some personal solutions that I've thought of, and kind of just discuss my opinions in general. Normally, I like to make my videos, minimize my own opinions on a lot of them, and just kind of present data and kind of go from there. So this one is more opinionated, and because of that too, I just also want to just clarify these are not things that I 100% need to happen. These are just my thoughts, after reflecting on the data after the last month of playing essentially with this new restriction list, and if anything kind of needs to change in my mind and kind of everything else. So this isn't just complaining about the meta either, and I do want to mention that too, and just kind of like a quick analogy too of one of the biggest things I've seen, especially because I report on so many of these tournaments. I cannot escape the red's best color comment on any video I make pretty much at this point. So I do think that there does need to be a best deck and format, and I don't want to excuse that. It's not even like shameful to see that one deck is doing well, right? It's more of, I think, a little bit that the fact that the two best decks, I think Zoro and Newgate, I don't think anyone's going to disagree with those are the best decks right now. They're both in the same color, and they both run a good amount of the same cards. They are different decks inherently, but just the fact that one color itself is dominating so much of this card game, I think is if it was two different decks with two different colors, I think there would be less agitation for it. But because they are the same color, I think that also kind of accelerates that discussion for it. So I don't know. We're just going to talk about, again, more of what we've seen last month. All of these decks, all these events can be found on my website too, which is linked in the description if you guys want to get your own data and your own sense of everything. So we're going to go through that. So should be fun, and look forward to the comment section of this video as well. So going on into it, quick, the restricted cards, and I do want to just kind of mention these, what was Bandai's purpose on restricting these cards, right? And Bandai's really kind, and when they do make these restriction lists and everything, and in their other card games too, they generically do add like a little developer's note or just the reasoning for it. So, but one big thing I want to mention for essentially all of these, if you look at all three of these ones, they all mention Newgate or Zoro as the leader that's, helping this card be ban worthy or restriction worthy. Radical Beam is mentioned in everyone except for, ironically, Radical Beam is just mentioning guard point. But Marco's, noted, and just everything else. So just the fact that they have noticed that Newgate and Zoro are very good leaders. My idea and my opinion on that is that they made these restrictions to cards to combat how good those decks are and to try to open up the meta to have those less represented. I think that is what their goal is for this restriction list, and we'll see if that's kind of what has been accomplished for it. But I don't think anyone would argue with that was their goal for these restriction lists because of the development note. So anyways, I also do want to mention real quick, there's kind of different reasons to restrict cards, and I kind of think it's mostly, I might be saying Kabaji a little bit more so, but there's a reason why you do restriction lists, and one is balance outright. If a card is unbalanced, you want the card to get restricted, but the other is customer satisfaction. And I have seen Bandai necessarily restrict a card or do something, not necessarily because it was the best deck in the meta, but because it was an interaction that they didn't want to promote in the game, right? It was less of like, even like, let's say something like, 20% of your opponents are Newgates, but it's always a bad time when you play them, kind of thing. That is something that they kind of take in consideration at times. So I do think that I do want to mention that, it could be a sense that Zoro and Newgate aren't unbalanced, but it's more of they've recognized that there's a customer satisfaction between the two. So it's kind of like a weird difference for it. I think Moby Dick was definitely a balance issue, but I think Kabaji was more leaning towards customer satisfaction maybe, and the fact that if it was really good in Nami, which was a deck that was moderately no interaction if you really go off, they didn't want that for their card game, for more of a customer satisfaction instead of the deck was too good kind of thing. So I don't know, that's just my opinion on it, and we're going to jump into some data analysis. So these are all the events on my website for the pre-restriction. So this is all of the English ones. These are all major regionals and treasure cups. You can find all of these events and all the individual deck list on my website if you want. So if you see, and I'll move a little bit out of the way, there's a good chunk of the Zoros and Newgates. I think those are the most popular leaders. Law is third, but just probably like a bit of a step down. And we do see quite a bit of on the second half of the pie charts for most of these, some exceptions. So we'll see that I think Law pops up a little bit. We see like Katakuri sometimes. We see like a Dofi on like the bottom left hand corner a couple times, but that's kind of what we saw. And then post restriction list, we're seeing pretty much the same thing. I would say it's nearly identical for what we're seeing for a good chunk of this pie chart. We're seeing a lot of Zoro and a lot of Newgate, and I don't think really a lot has changed. I think so much that I lied to you that I actually switched them. So this is actually this is the pre-restriction list pie charts, and this is the post-restriction pie charts. They're very much the same. They're very identical, at least on like a surface level, looking at how these the leaders that are topping are the same leaders pre and post. So I did do like a big kind of just overgeneralized thing where the pre-events here, we had 3 Zoros win the event and 2 Whitebeards and then a Lucci win. Post events, we did have a couple more. We had 3 Zoros win, 3 Whitebeards, Law, and a Dofi win for those large events. And I also did the start events, which is technically the meta that we have, where yellow and black got some new cards, but yellow and black, we got 1 Katakuri kind of win. It's a whole mess, but Katakuri win, a Law win, and 2 Zoro wins. So generically, nothing really changed on the percentage of topping leaders, or nothing negligible, and like it's just the same more or less. If you look at it on a kind of a grand view, Newgate's still topping, Zoro's still topping, they're still winning, and the fact that even with them losing 3 cards, these leaders are very, very good leaders in this card game. And I that's my opinion based on the data. You guys can have your own, but I think that's very clear based on my own insights from that. So going on into it, I also want to quickly touch that we do have some of the OPO4 meta in Asia. I don't have a lot of events, but I did get a couple of them. And the reason I don't cover Asia as much is because it's really difficult to consistently get deck lists from their events. So these have been, I put these on my websites based on the information I got, but you do see that there is, Newgate still topping, Zoro still topping, Law's still present, and then we do get some more from them there. So I kind of just want to mention this because it's kind of difficult to mention restricting cards in a format if the format's going to be leaving soon. So because we have 1 month from now, essentially, until we get to OPO4, right? And so if we get any restrictions right now or anything like that, it's only going to be for a month, and then it's going to be hard to carry them over to OPO4. And but in general, I just kind of want to just show that I think that Newgate and Zoro are still going to be present in OPO4. Is it's too much? We'll find out, but it's definitely not a problem that gets solved immediately by releasing new cards either, which is, I think, pretty apparent there. So I did make a video 31 month and 1 day ago, I suppose, right before the restriction list immediately got announced. So these are the cards that I talked about originally for these ones, just because I thought that these were cards that were a little bit overrepresented. I don't think it was a big argument to say that these 3 leaders on the left here were the most represented ones, in the fact that they were getting a lot of tops. They're all at least mostly red, with just the green half of Trafalgar Law really just being your 5 drops, your beige, and your Bonnie. But just the fact that these decks were obviously very, very strong in their own right. I did talk about the Marcos a little bit. I kind of wanted them to just either be more restricted to who could use them, mostly just kind of so Zoro couldn't use it. Radbeam, I got at 1, and that was like the only thing that I asked for, and it happened. And then Curly Dadan was on my list as well. It's just something that I think is very, very present. It's only for Zoro and Law. Technically, Newgate doesn't run the card, but it's a card that, after I made that video, I kind of made a mental note every time I played against Trafalgar Law and Zoro. And if they played the Dawn on curve, how good they were doing. And most of the time, I lost. I don't have strict data, and I'm sorry about that. But the Dawn on curve was just such a good play, and just was so hard to, overcome the amount of advantage they were able to get so quickly with it. So those are my original thoughts. If you want to see that video, you guys can check that one out, and I can link it. I'll link the other 2 videos I made on this topic, because I made one, obviously, the day before the restriction list was announced, and then the when the it was announced, we had that. But here are my thoughts. So Newgate, should we ban it? When I made my original video a month ago, I said no. I think it's, and I think Bandai is really, really not wanting to ban this leader. I don't think they want any leader or character to just be out of the game outright. But this Newgate is really pressing it. And I don't think this is like unbeatable, and I don't think it's a deck that is like unwinnable, because obviously we've seen others do it justice, but this is a really obnoxious guy in my mind, and just the fact that it's 6K, and the fact that you take the damage is generically better than not. We do know that they have like a 6K 3 life leader in Luffy that's coming down the line, so we'll see what I think about that. But I don't know, it's probably, I don't know if they're going to ban it. I wouldn't be surprised at this point if they did. I think a lot of people have kind of expressed their unhappiness about playing against it, but it's not something I'm currently campaigning. But man, it's making it very tough. Like every day I feel like I'm a little bit closer to be like, I would probably be happier with this card game if it didn't exist. But I'm not 100% there yet. Let me know what you guys think. So Zoro, he's in a weird spot. I think he's honestly, I think he's just generically too good, and I think it's been shown that because of just how good that buff is that he gets, that I don't think it should be around as generic as it is. I really do think that Zoro needs an errata. I think I said that in my original video, and I still believe that today, that everything that he buffs, just generically buffing everything, is too powerful in effect. So I hope that he gets an effect. Like, I think an errata for him would be just very strong. I know it stinks because we've had like 3 different arts of the leader already printed and everything else, but I think if it's only buffed some combination of Straw Hat, Supernovas, and slash attribute cards, it would just be better for the game design, the balance, and everything else. I don't think that it would break the leader. I don't think it would be unplayable, but I think it would be in a case where you get so much free advantage. Like even with like a 5/6, being able to make that a 7 for 1 is in just generic. I don't know. It just scales really poorly for I think how the game is. So I don't know if that's controversial. I've been kind of in this thought for a long time, and this is definitely this is like the one thing I think I would campaign before. I would campaign this before banning Newgate, I think. But there he is there. Trafalgar Law, I don't know. This is nothing that I'm campaigning at all. I do think that he is a strong leader that will just be around forever if he doesn't change, with mostly the same cards. He'll probably get out of it, and he's been less popular in the post-restriction list meta because I think a lot more people are playing Fire Fist, which is a red-only card, though, so that's kind of like the trickiness for it. So I don't know if you want to like increase the cost of his leader skill, or characters are playing rest. Those are like the two that I've been juggling with. There's neither one I'm really campaigning for. I don't think the leader needs to go away from the game, but I think that what he does is a little bit too efficient for what the game is sometimes. So the game state that I always hate is that they're able to like swing like 3 times at you, and then they can use the leader main effect, and then there's nothing you can swing it instead of my leader, so you can't like do some easy board clear. So but I also think that's something that can change with OP04 coming out. So I don't know. I'm up in the air with this one. We'll kind of see. Radical Beam, I think we just need to keep this guy limited. I'm super okay with that. I have no qualms about this. It's just makes sense to me. If you think it needs to come back and forth, let me know. But I think most people are okay with this being at 1, and I don't think that needs to change. The Marcos are really tough. I think that the 5-drop is the actual one that needs to be restricted to 1, but they didn't do that because that was the one that just got released. So they restricted the other Marco because of that, hoping it would be good enough. And I don't know. This is all conjecture. This is all a guess. I think they're both either restricted to 1 worthy. I think the 5-drop Marco is probably the best card in the entire game right now. If you play it on curve, you probably are in a really good spot to win. In a lot of cases, your opponent is really scared about trying to KO this traditionally. I think if blue gets better and we have more alternative removals like bottom decking, return to hand, and etc., I think that's fine. But the fact that it also just gets like a free KO on anything, that you can also use Otama, use Gordon, a lot of other stuff to help get stuff into range. It's very strong, but like it's also it's just like if I always compare like Marco to standard removal for black in this card game, and it's just so much freer for Marco. It just seems a little bit unfair. So I think this the 5 drops really overtuned, especially like either it doesn't have like the counter or like needs to be a 5K or like there's something that needs to be tuned down for it. I don't think they're gonna do any of those tune downs. So either restrict it to like a Whitebeard leader, and both of these could do that too. Especially like a lot of people say, oh, if you restrict some of these red cards, Ace is not going to be a really good deck, and I kind of agree with that. And so, if some of them are like restricted to Whitebeard pirates, and so you can still use them in Ace, I think that kind of makes it a little bit better. But like this Marco, like the 5-drop Marco, definitely reads as like a character exclusive card and not something that red can generically use and get in trouble with. So those are my thoughts. I think something has to happen. 4-drop Marco, like it is really obnoxious that it is just around forever and it's like a free block, but it is also like something that you have to kind of invest for. I still think the 5-drop's more busted as a card in general, but I don't know. So those are those guys. We'll see what happens with these, if anything. And then Curly Dadan, This card is just, I think this card is just trouble. I think it's generically too good to have this only in red. If every color had a card like this, it wouldn't be an issue, but it's just a generic searcher, and obviously it's a pain in Zoro, but it's just so good. I think that the amount of consistency there is, the fact that there's so many good cards that are 1-drop red cards as it is. So I don't know. I would not be surprised if this card got hit, to be honest. I do recognize that this is definitely a problem, I think, compared to just every other color. So I don't know. Let me know if that's crazy, but that's my thoughts there. And then we have Newgate. And honestly, I don't know how I feel about this card. I know it's like a menace in the fact that you can give plus power. I also know that, like, looking a little bit to the forward, that we have like the star deck Luffy that's red and purple and ramps and is like a base 6K. So it could take advantage of this Newgate and ramp up to it very easily. So I don't really know what I feel about this guy. It's like 1 seems okay. It's a little bit sacky, but like I also like you have to pay 9 for its effect, so like it's your only thing you're doing that turn. So there are a lot of situations where you would want to do it, and then you're like you only have like 1 Dawn open, and then like that's not enough to like even if you're like a 7 or 8K leader, it's just like not enough for it. So I don't know what my thoughts are for this guy. Let me know what you guys think. This might come back, especially like if something happens like Newgate or like some other of the cards. I could see this one comes back at 4, but it's hard to tell. I don't know. Like red kind of like needs some like generic high end, and I think this is like a neat one, but I don't know. I don't have a really good solution for this one, unfortunately, right now. So I could see it staying at 1. I could see it staying at 4, like coming back to 4. But I don't really know from there. So, but that's kind of like the main things I want to talk about today. I do also want to close on this part, and maybe I should have started with it, but we're closing with it, is that there's always a power vacuum in card games where if you take out some cards, I guess not those 3 red cards that we saw, because literally like nothing happened, but the fact that if we're in a if you always run the risk of saying that if you take cards out of the meta that you get is worse, right? So in no sense have I obviously done enough practice, enough testing or anything to say that any of my thoughts will lead to a better meta. These are just the thoughts that I've had in the last month since observing the new meta and the tournaments and the results and kind of everything else. So you do have to be in this mindset of like, you have to be careful what you wish for. If you take out red, what becomes like, what's the next best deck, right? Is it Katakuri, where you just drop 2 10-drop big bombs and you win the game, right? Is it like, I don't know if Lucci is the case, and obviously we do have OP04, so if we don't have some of these more aggressive decks, and in general from early testing in OP04, there are a lot more decks that are kind of more control heavy, and so if we get rid of these kind of more aggressive decks as well, where we just kind of have like this really slow control-y game that a lot of people don't like either, that we'd want to have another an aggressor deck that kind of keeps them in check a little bit. So I don't have solutions. These are just opinions, and I do not want you guys to present these as me thinking that all these cards need to be banned, that red is like unfixably broken, and additionally that something needs to change in OP04. So I want you guys to have your own opinions. That's why I give you the data, the facts, and just kind of a little bit of a nudge of what I'm currently thinking as well. So that's going to be this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I know it's normally not what I do. If you guys think I should just keep my opinions to myself, please let me know. I'll take that in consideration. And that's going to be this one. So let me know your own thoughts. I know there's a lot to go over for this one. I appreciate you guys making it this far in this video. If you have, hit the like button if you haven't, and we'll catch you all next time.
Damn it.